Well, here we are, Smash Ultimate's top tiers. In this video, we'll be looking at the A- tier, which is basically part of the high tier, and then we'll go all the way to the S+ tier, which is the best characters that are in this game. The interesting thing about Smash Ultimate is a lot of the best characters have the fastest frame data. Like, the frame data is really cranked up a lot. Really strong aerial games, and a lot of Wave 2 DLC characters are here as well. But anyways, let's get into it. Make sure to subscribe, by the way, if you want more videos similar to this. They're actually already on the channel, so thank you. And make sure to hit the like button as well. Zero Suit Samus got significantly nerfed from being a top tier in Smash 4. Now, this is by far the worst version of ZSS because she's actually pretty good in almost every single game. And this time around, she's a decent high tier character, but nowhere near as dominant as she was in Brawl and Smash 4. First off, she got nerfed because, well, her ladder combos in Smash 4 needed to be toned down, and they were. Her KO option, which was going for up air, and then up special, confirms at earlier percentages, and Rage obviously helping with that in the lower blast zones. All that stuff has been toned down in Smash Ultimate. They've also made her damage racking up ability a lot worse, and her survivability has been toned down, and obviously this could also be hurt because she's a really light character. Her shield options aren't really the best, and it makes her a harder sell compared to the other characters who are higher on the tier list who do similar things. She was actually considered as a much better character when Ultimate first came out, but her viability cooled off as time went on because the buffs to other characters and the DLC characters getting introduced are what really toned down a lot of ZSS's aspects in this meta, and you saw there was a noticeable decline by this point. But despite this, ZSS, she's extremely fast paced, she's got a great projectile, strong recovery, great options like a tether grab, her side special that existed in Brawl but was cut in Smash 4, the flip jump is faster tool in the air but it has less end lag, and up throw can be a possible KO tool, which is actually neat. But going up, Terry was added as a DLC character in Smash Ultimate, and he was a character known for his high combo potential, his nasty KO setups. Many of his strengths were his tools for racking up damage because of his unique quirks, and being a character from King of Fighters, he has many things that are actually from this game, like his aerials and tilts that can be auto-cancelled and lead into his special moves. And similar to Ryu and Ken having an auto turnaround mechanic, which actually can allow him to punish rolls and trap characters easily. He of course has the Go mechanic, which gives him his special moves that are extremely powerful KO tools for Terry. He does have his weaknesses, which are his approach options not really being the best, and he doesn't like fighting characters who are strong zoners because he really does need to go in and scrap. Even though he does have a projectile, his range is just not the best outside of this, and his recovery is definitely exploitable, and he can be easily edge guarded. And also because of him being a heavyweight, he's pretty easy to combo as well. So if you can even escape out of his jab and tilts by correct DI, so that makes it actually hard to really use Terry on the top level in tournament. Many people thought he was insane though when he first came out, his punish game and deadly combo game, but over time people realized that he does have more issues, and he ended up just being a high tier character, but he's nowhere near bad. Lucina has maintained the same placement in Smash Ultimate. The buffs to Ultimate's engine greatly benefited characters like her now having a 3-frame jump squat, and her aerials being insanely buffed, and she actually is technically better than Marth this time around, which is like, whoa, it's like the early patch period of Smash 4. This is a huge difference in meta viability, as Marth is a lot lower than Lucina is, especially for Lucina being an Echo fighter. But Marth was toned down a lot, and it made Lucina a better sell this time around. She has more consistent hitboxes on her sword and doesn't rely on the tipper hits, but she did get toned down compared to Smash 4, like her jab being less strong for confirming. Her KO power is weaker, especially her forward smash and forward air, and her grab game is further weakened by Ultimate's universal nerfs to grabs. Lucina has a rather linear recovery, but despite this, she transitioned well to Smash Ultimate despite being nerfed. The ability to dash cancel improves her spacing ability a lot. Plenty of sword characters actually love using this. It makes their spacing tools less predictable, and the faster aerials with less lag, as I mentioned. Yeah, Lucina definitely really enjoys it. She doesn't have as much KO tools, but she's really good at racking up damage and picking her spots, and that's really why Lucina is considered better in this game. She was considered a top tier for a while, however, she's definitely been not seen as relevant as she used to be, as people have adapted to her playstyle. Now, Corrin has a slight drop from Smash 4 to Ultimate, but this is still a great version of the character. Corrin is known for the strong amounts of range, frame data, and damage output. Corrin also has a projectile and a strong strong neutral options that she can break shield with her forward smash, her Dragon Fang shot. Dragon Lunge serves as a strong approaching tool, and it's one of Corrin's integral parts of the character's kit, and the move can be canceled into other tools. But the character does have poor mobility issues, and Corrin has a lot of moves that are bad out of shield, and is susceptible to combos. Many of her moves don't come out really quickly, so this leads to Corrin having really poor defensive option. And also the character's recovery is easy to gimp since, you know, it's just always a part of the character, unfortunately. The character was actually seen as a mid-tier way back in the day, and many say the nerfs to especially Corrin's back air and side special were toned down, and this made Corrin a bit of a difficult character to play initially. And then Corrin was buffed throughout Smash Ultimate's updates, and also the character enjoys the more fast-paced engine. These two things push the character higher into competitive play. So Corrin was actually buffed because of this, and Dragon Lunge also getting improved KO power. Corrin was definitely a high tier character, where he was previously ranked in the B tier, going all the way to the A tier, and some people think Corrin has room to grow from here. Bayonetta got major nerfs, and thank God, as she was the best character in Smash 4. No duh, she obviously had to be toned down in this game. But she's still a competent character despite getting rightfully nerfed. Bayonetta is still known as a combo-centric character with her very strong ladder setups. Bayonetta was made slower in Ultimate, and many of her combos starting tools have been toned down, like her tilts and her aerials more specifically were given more end lag. And Bullet Climax takes longer to cancel and no longer can be held down forever. Witch Twist was rightfully toned down as the KO power the follow-up potential has been made weaker. All in all, they toned down many of her aggressive options that she was known for having previously. They made her a character with a bigger disadvantage state. Initially, people thought Bayonetta was pretty bad, as some people decided later on to at least try to give the character a try. Bayonetta was actually buffed in balance patches, giving her longer lasting hitboxes, and just many, many more. They really sprinkled plenty of buffs to the character that improved her. She was seen as a mid-tier for a period of time, and then over time people now think she's actually a very solid high-tier character. I've even seen some people say she's a top tier again, but it really depends on your take. This is probably one of the largest changes in tier list viability in Ultimate's whole lifespan from the first and second tier list, so people truly saw the potential of the character this time around. Shulk is actually leagues better than the Smash 4 iteration, and first off, I feel like Shulk's moveset is way more ironed out this time around. Pressing the B button multiple times to switch between Minato arts was really quirky and weird, and compared to the menu option now, this is just night and day, leagues better than what it was in the past. It makes switching Minato arts much quicker and effective, and it makes it easy. This alone is a big buff to Shulk. Although Shulk is still on the slower end of most of the characters in the cast, he does enjoy the 3-frame jump squat. His aerials are at their peak in this game, and this means Shulk's approach options are really good. He did get some nerfs to his survivability, no longer being a heavyweight character and now being seen as a middleweight, and he lost a lot of his advanced tech from Smash 4. His grab game is still pretty average, and you can argue in Ultimate you can see that it's even worse in a lot of ways because of his grabs universally being weaker in this game, and back air had 2 large hitboxes previously. They also made the positives and negatives between Minato arts more stark in this game, which does benefit and also hurt Shulk at the same time. And Shulk was actually seen as a high tier character to even a top tier, but more recently people have felt that has not really been held as high as people thought he was. Pokemon Trainer got huge buffs from Brawl. No longer being held down by a terrible mechanic in Brawl, where thankfully they abandoned actually both of them. The stamina mechanic, which was more specifically something that held down each Pokemon the longer that they were held out, actually become weaker. The mechanic was made to promote switching, which was really more limited than it tended to be. And it actually forced you to switch more frequently, but most people actually didn't like it. And also the type weakness mechanic being removed, as just like in the Pokemon games, the fire type was weak to water, water was weak to grass, grass was weak to fire. And this suddenly buffed Squirtle because he could sponge some of the most common elemental attacks in the game, but it most notably nerfed Ivysaur the most. Ivysaur was seen as extremely weak, and some people consider Ivysaur to be one of the worst characters in Brawl. Some smash attacks could kill Ivysaur at less than 10%, and this mechanic buffed Pokemon Trainer immensely by removing it. It made the Pokemon a lot safer in this game, and it's also going to massively improve Pokemon's actual point of their moveset, which is switching each Pokemon from each other. Squirtle was nerfed overall, while Ivysaur was massively buffed, having strong zoning tools and burst options that actually make Ivysaur feel like a functional character for once. I know, right? Well, Charizard was given a mix of buffs and nerfs, and thankfully they've trimmed out a lot of Burrow's worst mechanics for Pokemon Trainer. It's funny because in Smash 4, Pac-Man had a lot of laughable things. Many people just thought the character had one of the biggest fall-offs in the game's beta, and now in Smash Ultimate, Pac-Man is finally able to capitalize on just so many of the buffs the character received, finally becoming a great character, and holding it too. He no longer has one of the laggiest grabs in the game, and his special moves cannot be used against him. He was known for having some of the laggiest special moves in the game, and he also had one of the worst grabs in the series thanks to a major amount of startup and end lag and lack of range that were on these grabs, and also they just had very little utility out of them. Now he actually has some more KO potential this time around. His up throw and back throw can actually KO. Neutral B now cycles faster, which is actually going to improve this move's utility, and down tilt and down air, dash attack are harder to punish, and they have increased range, better frame data across his entire moveset, and his smash attacks have less startup and are actually stronger KO tools. He did get nerfs to his removal of the footstool combos and Z-dropping tools. He can no longer pick up his fruit out of Z-drop, and his new up tilt is a little bit more of a situational move. Compared to Smash 4, Pac-Man was considered a strong character in some points, but now being considered a top tier character in the game, and his fall off to being a high tier is mostly because of the rise of characters like Cloud, Game & Watch, and Steve. They're good at dealing with his projectile game and outranging Pac-Man, but it is what it is. Now, Mario was toned down quite a bit from Smash 4. I've made plenty of videos actually about this. He was on the higher end of the meta during the early points of Smash Ultimate's release, and then after a couple majors, people realized that his ladder combos were toned down. Many of his premier KO tools were also weaker in this game. In Smash 4, he was known for killing at the top blast zone at really easy percents, toned down his ladder combos significantly, similar to ZSS. Mario's ladder combos still work, but they're less consistent as compared to what they used to be. The other thing that toned down Mario was a lot of the Surge and Sword characters in this game. Swordies are at their peak in Ultimate. Mario is just going to struggle against many of these characters who were buffed. And Mario has already had pretty poor range in the past, and that's one of his crippling weaknesses of his archetype. But he does stay true to the Smash 4 iteration, it's just he's toned down in this game, and it's harder to really do some of the things that he could do in the past. Which again was one of Mario's redeeming factors previously, is now a little bit more risky, and despite the nerfs, Mario is still a strong character in the high tier. Even his tools like Fireball have been noticeably buffed in this game, being made larger. Flood has less end lag, Forward Smash has more KO potential. It's just the factors of Ultimate's engine made Mario less dominant in this game, but he's still a reliable character, no doubt. Wolf returned in Ultimate, and he was given massive buffs in this game. Being a very fundamental character with strong punishes and a decent neutral, having a larger projectile in this game, and many moves in his moveset was significantly reworked for the better. He has a buffed dash, airspeed, dash attack, and many of his moves have more knockback and deal more damage and actually have more range this time around. He has a new neutral air that gives him a vastly more effective approach options, essentially being Fox's old neutral air. It's actually kind of funny how that works. It's an excellent combo starter due to its reduced end lag and now being actually a lot faster. Wolf even has improved frame data, improving his KO power, even his side special and up special. However, Wolf does have quite a few flaws, like his recovery has always been a huge flaw for him, and even in this game it has been toned down quite a bit, and his weight is going to make him easy to combo and him being a fast faller. Additionally, Wolf's KO options have less range like Forward Smash, and Wolf doesn't get the cool Smash 4 recovery buffs like Fox and Falco did, so side special and up special doesn't work for Wolf, which is part of the reason why Wolf can struggle in this area. Despite his recovery being worse, his neutral and combo game especially are much better in this game. So Wolf was seen as a clear top tier when the game first came out, some saying he was actually the best character in the game. But as you can probably guess, Wolf would later be toned down from being a top tier character, as many people actually overrated Wolf early on, to being seen as a high tier character. Also, Wolf was nerfed quite a bit, especially his KO power. The negatives became more prominent in his moveset, but he was one of the most popular characters in the meta at one point. Wario is a heavyweight character with incredible amounts of aerial mobility and having low jumps. His walk speed is actually the 12th slowest in the game. He's really good at controlling the air, as Wario's attacks have a lot of disjoint. He has a high airspeed, which means he can go in and out and bait attacks and punish any given opening. And due to his short stature, he's actually really hard to punish. And his aerial mobility means he can actually be pretty nimble while he's floating around and drifting. Previously seen as a low tier character, but thankfully the character got buffed. His game plan has become more aggressive this time around. His up tilt nair became a trademark bread and butter tool for the character, and up tilt no longer has high KO potential, but now it's a actual combo tool for Wario. They're also really good at leading into down special confirms, which is a very common KO tool for Wario, having a new forward tilt, back air, and dash attack all having more range and knockback. And Chomp can actually KO in this game, as yeah, who would have thought? Which is actually a great buff, and his side special is a solid zoning tool because of its increased KO power, although Wario does have to wait a little bit longer in between each use. Wario was seen as a top tier character early in the meta, but over time he would receive nerfs to his waft and up tilt, limiting their consistency and KO potential, where people began to feel that Wario just wasn't as strong as people thought he was initially, and he was still a decent high tier character though. Roy was majorly improved from Smash 4. I mentioned previously in the Smash 4 mid-tier video that Roy was reminiscent of the Melee version in Smash 4, struggling in range quite a bit, and he had an awful recovery. Roy also has massive sour spots on his sword that were limiting their consistency, especially when you're actually trying to use his moves. It actually make Roy a lot better, thankfully, as Roy was given plenty of buffs that he was desperately needing for years. He enjoyed many of the buffs in the engine, like the 3-frame jump squat. His nair actually became a competent tool for setups. He even got a buff side special, now having less startup and end lag. They truly optimized him a lot, and he used to be a character with terrible air game and combo game, but he's actually a character that is more defined by it this time around, and he's actually much better at just being a solid character on the ground and in the air, although he still does have a weak recovery. But Roy does enjoy the air dodge buff, as it's a recovery mix-up option for him, and in Ultimate they did truly fix him. They made him less polarizing than he was in the past, and Roy was actually considered a strong character out the gate. He was actually considered slightly worse compared to Chrom. I know that's kind of ironic how things turned out, as Chrom was lacking these sour spot hitboxes, but over time Roy was preferred because of his less limiting recovery, and Roy was actually seen as one of the most common characters in the meta for this period of time. But now more recently, even Roy's recovery has been seen as a limiting factor for the character, and his hilt sweet spots are slowly pushing Roy further down in the tier list. But despite this, Roy is actually much better in this game, easily the best iteration of the character. Sora was a unique DLC fighter, having a really high double jump with floaty movement that is good at controlling space. Sora possesses a dominant air game in Smash Ultimate, having aerials that have great power and coverage. He's good at initiating combo loops. Sora's best trait is his high amount of active frames, granting him considerable margin to his attacks, and Magic allows him to actually cycle projectiles that can help him control neutral. He has a down special counter, and his recovery is extremely long lasting. He has a hitbox at the top that can actually KO. His side special and up special allow him to have flexibility when returning on stage, and Sora has impressive grabs like his down throw or back throw, both of these being reliable setup tools. Actually having one of the shortest grab ranges out of any sword character in the game, and this also is going to make it hard for him to punish. This is even more of an issue with his poor airspeed and slow double jump, and it means Sora is going to struggle when it comes to escaping out of pressure. His survivability is also a contributing factor to this, meaning Sora can be KO'd early due to his lightweight. Many people do like to nitpick how his neutral B can be predictable because his very strict cycle. Although Sora didn't have strong results when the game first came out, over time he showed to be a promising character in the meta. Pikachu is a terrible character in this game, absolutely terrible at doing pretty much everything, and is bad in every game. Okay, I'm kidding. Pikachu is really strong in Smash Ultimate. I'm sure in the next game, Pikachu's probably going to be just as good, because that's just what the character is. Pikachu's great at racking up damage, has a projectile that's strong at spacing, and is easily one of the best projectiles in the game in a lot of people's opinion. Thunder Jolt is also good at not just zoning, it's also a defensive tool that keeps opponents away. Many tools in Pikachu's combo game actually are really strong. Nair is a beneficial combo tool, back air is actually strong at edge guarding, and many of Pikachu's moves have less end lag. Down air can actually meteor smash, and Pikachu even has been made faster, but Pikachu also still has similar flaws like struggling in range, up throw also being a less consistent tool into Thunder, and Pikachu's entire moveset has been seeing drastic improvements all around. Many people see Pikachu as a high tier due to the low representation and sparse results. Palutena was given a drastic improvement in this iteration, where she was pretty awkward in Smash 4. Had mediocre approach options, poor KO power, really uninspired special moves that weren't doing the character too much, and she just felt like she was missing something. And maybe some actual competent special moves and actually having speed might improve the character. Okay, obviously that did happen. They thankfully fixed Palutena, as first off giving her a new neutral B, one of her neutral B custom moves being put onto her side special, and yes, it became one of the most spammed moves in her kit, which also means her previous side special and down special were actually both combined into one move. And she is leagues faster, not just having a better run speed and dash speed, but she also has the end lag and startup on her moves that have been drastically reduced. Her smash attacks have improved range, and her aerials have actually been received a slew of buffs that made Palutena actually more consistent combo game wise, also having better edge guarding for KOing. She has a weaker grab game in Smash 4, sure, but the buffs definitely outweigh the nerfs, as while she isn't as dominant as she was in the early years of Smash Ultimate, she was actually nerfed in certain points of the meta, but she was shown to be a solid character, no doubt. Now Samus was heavily improved in this game. In Smash 4, she was actually seen as one of the worst characters before she got buffs, so it's kind of funny. And now she is seen as a very competent projectile zoner in this game, as Samus was known to have consistently terrible grab game, and this is mainly because of her slow tether grab and mediocre options out of it. Despite these moves having less range, it always came at a cost, and well, not anymore. Thank God. Samus has a grab that is less punishable and is finally more consistent, like down throw and up throw more specifically becoming a KO tool. Even forward and back throw can KO, who would have thought? She is a lot more offensive in this game, with Charge Shot dealing more knockback. Missiles deal more damage and have less end lag. Her close combat options are more powerful, like her down tilt and down smash and dash attack. These tools becoming strong KO options for Samus, but she did trade these options by having some moves with less range, like up smash and Nair, for example, becoming weaker. She can no longer abuse rage with her up special like she could in Smash 4. Overall, the improvements to her speed and decreasing the end lag on her moves, making her more offensive this time around, is what really helped her a lot in this game. She climbs to the heights that the character has really never seen ever before, now becoming a consistent meta threat. Many people debate on if she's truly a top 10 character, while other people believe she's actually in the perfect spot in the A tier. Oh yeah, and Dark Samus exists, but their moveset is exactly the same, so moving on. Yoshi is a strong iteration of the character in this game. Now Yoshi in Smash 4 was cursed with low amounts of KO power, but this thing alone has been thankfully reversed, as Yoshi's smash attacks have increased power, moves like forward tilt and back air actually are more consistent combo tools, and also egg throw deals more damage, goes further diagonally, allowing Yoshi to actually win neutral more consistently. Yoshi also has a buffed recovery, and Yoshi also does get less range from their up tilt and dash attack, as these moves can no longer cross up shield and is more risky to use. They even limited Yoshi's jump height, but Yoshi's whole kit has been improved for the better, where Yoshi is actually going to be a more dangerous character in this game, thanks to the KO buffs. Yoshi's hype was built similarly to how it was built up in Smash 4, except Yoshi actually delivered this time around, especially since Yoshi has a larger meta presence in this game. The character did have ups and downs at points. It hasn't stopped Yoshi from placing just below top 10 at 14th place. Quite a good placement for the character, honestly. Cloud was understandably nerfed compared to Smash 4, where I feel like they really just said screw it in the last game and let Cloud be the second best character in the game. Cloud had a slight drop compared to Smash 4, but he still hasn't shown that he's stopping anytime soon, as Cloud enjoys many of the obvious buffs like the 3-frame jump squat, aerials being at their peak in Ultimate, and sorties in general being strong in this game, having high amounts of speed and his limit mechanic and the larger hitbox sizes. Cloud's nerfs mostly came to his recovery, which was actually his main disadvantage previously, but now is actually slightly more of a negative for this time around, as his up special height was toned down pretty hard. Now his limit charge can no longer be instant charge canceled, and he can lose the charge if he's hit during the process of it. The limit buffs also end on their own, so he can't hold them indefinitely, and they only last for 15 seconds. Cloud's air game has also been noticeably toned down, as neutral air has less range, down air has a lingering hitbox that ends quicker, and his moves have more end lag. Even his up air has been handed many nerfs to its startup, and also having obvious range nerfs. His grab game is pretty bad, as they have more startup and they lack their consistent combo utility this time around. Down throw, even in forward smash, were given more end lag. His smash attacks were given reduced KO power, but despite the nerfs, Cloud is at home in this game's engine because, like I've stated before, the less lag on aerials. Back air is actually considered one of the best back airs in the game because of how fast it is and its range. Dash attack and up smash have more reliable KO potential, and blade beam has less end lag. Up special has lower landing lag and now transitions quicker, and he can air dodge out of limit charge. Finishing touch is stronger, and Cloud actually can gain more limit when he's getting damaged, which benefited his defensive game quite a bit. Cloud was actually a potent character in the meta. Many people initially wrote him off because of the nerfs, especially to his recovery and range. As time went on, people clearly saw that Cloud was still good. Cloud was actually considered a top tier character at certain points. While he is just outside of the top tiers, his playstyle definitely just does really well in Ultimate's engine. Incredible frame data, projectile, sword, like what do you expect? Cloud is good. Now Min Min was a DLC fighter for Smash Ultimate, and her greatest strength was her range. Many people like to call her the Dhalsim of Smash, and it's kind of true in a way. There's not a single character in the game who has as much range with her normals and smash attacks as she does. And usually projectile defined characters are actually the classic examples of characters with high amounts of range, but Min Min's tools actually allow her to control stage and give her high amounts of damage without actually coming at a significant cost, or at least it looks like it to be. Her true strength to her character, and this complemented her ability to move while jumping, while also using her attacks and making her actually a dangerous character at stage control. She's good at ledge trapping and edge guarding, tech chasing, and she even has options that are strong at KOing. And she actually has the ability to change her arms and her moveset, and these tools allow her to adapt in any given situation, which can also benefit her neutral game. Even one of the more beneficial buffs were to her KO power. Ram Ram was her faster arm, and then also she has stronger options like Megawatt, which is the slowest one but the hardest hitting, and the Dragon, that is sort of a middle ground between the two. Now the character does have her weaknesses, like her poor offstage game, and she has bad air speed while having short range with her recovery. Her combo breakers are not reliable enough to make her a strong enough sell in that area. So breaking out of combos is definitely a real disadvantage state for her. And many of her attacks, despite them coming out fast, are pretty punishable, and if you manage to play around them, it can be a hard thing for the character. Which really means she has to be precise on where she moves and where she puts out her attacks, as she does have poor options out of shield. In competitive play, Min Min was actually seen as a mixed character. Some people completely writing Min Min off, and then others thinking she was actually secretly the best character in the game. However, as time went on, Min Min's presence in the tournaments managed to still be strong, but not nearly as dominant as some people predicted. She was still a really good character, ending up in the high tier. Kazuya has a lot of positives going for him, and Smash Ultimate being an example of a DLC fighter with a lot of options, having a deadly combo game and punish game. He has the largest amount of moves a character has in Smash. Down throw, for example, being an uncrouching attack. Down back tilt and electric god fist are some of his best combo starting moves, and his best KO tools being his up smash or devil wing or devil wings dragon uppercut. He can actually zero to death characters with many of these iconic combos because of just how difficult it is for people to escape out of them. Even when Rage activates, he gets stronger and deals more damage, and Heaven's Door and Rage Dive are great tools. His weaknesses though are his poor frame data and lackluster mobility, bad defensive options, and many of his moves have high amounts of startup and end lag. His aerials are pretty unsafe on shield, and his ground speed is definitely among one of the slowest in the game, unless he's using crouch dash, of course. But even his low range and his actual frame 7 jump squat are actually not enough to really limit him in a lot of people's opinion. Yes, he doesn't have a 3-frame jump squat, but he does have a pretty bad disadvantage state. His offstage abilities are pretty subpar due to his slow speed, and being in the air is probably not his strong suit. The benefits with Rage can be taken away after a while, and he also, if he spams the move too much, his recovery, while not being terrible, can be exploited because of the high amounts of lag. But overall, in competitive play, Kazuya was seen as one of the craziest characters introduced in the game, with a high learning curve, having plenty of moves. Many people saw and thought initially that Kazuya was actually really good. Some people complaining about the character's strengths and even wanting Kazuya to be banned because of the 0 to death combos. If an opponent played perfectly, people actually were a little afraid of what that would look like in the meta. A more optimized Kazuya wouldn't be dropping combos and would actually be 0 to deathing more frequently. But Kazuya doesn't have as much representation compared to the characters that are higher than him on the tier list, which is why the ban Kazuya conversation has cooled off in the later years, because people realize that he's actually really hard to play, especially probably having one of the higher skill ceilings in the whole game, and that being a major barrier to entry for him, the S tier. Now, Joker was seen as the first DLC character added to Smash Ultimate, and ever since this first iteration of Joker being released, people thought he was a top tier character. While Joker may not be top 2 in the game, he's still shown to be a very strong character, having a projectile with decent amounts of range, and obviously the Arsene persona mechanic that gives him a different variation to his special moves while buffing his damage and KO power. His frame data is a huge sell to his moveset, and he has plenty of safe attacks, strong tools for pressuring. He has really solid mobility. Many of his moves are good at crossing up shields. Down and up throw are actually strong combo tools, along with down tilt and up tilt. Also, his gun is good at building damage, and Joker can dash out of it. And even the curse mechanic is one of a kind. His strengths are pretty clear, but Joker's flaws are that he can struggle to KO, especially if he doesn't have Arsene, and his out of shield options are not as good as other characters. His recovery is also not really that safe. He's a rather technical character with a high skill ceiling. Although Joker had a slight fall off during the online period, he's still a very viable character and a strong S tier. Diddy Kong is, surprise surprise, ranked as a top tier. He's basically 3 for 3 of being a top tier character. Many people actually thought Diddy Kong would be nerfed significantly from Smash 4. He easily was one of the most dominant characters in that game before DLC came out, and then even after that he was still good. Well, in Ultimate's early days, people noticed that Diddy Kong was nerfed, and people actually wrote off the character as many of the weaknesses were actually amplified this time around, like having difficulty KOing, his recovery not being as strong of a tool, and some of his hitboxes not being as rewarding. Many people actually just dropped the character this time around, but over time Diddy Kong actually received plenty of buffs, and this actually improved a lot of his KO power negatives and his bad recovery, which led to people actually discovering that Diddy Kong actually has infinites, and people started labbing punishes with the banana, and these things actually were pushed harder than people expected them to be, which showed Diddy Kong was actually a pretty solid character, which is actually kind of hilarious that he was initially seen as a mid-tier and then he would go all the way to being a top tier. Although they would patch out a lot of his pyramid scheme infinites that he was known for having, Diddy Kong was still seen as a character that began to rise with the tide, and the strengths of the character began to improve further and further. And his tier list placement was just pretty obvious that he was a top tier character. He's also really good at gaining advantage because of his fast frame data. He has neat options like Monkey Flip, which are good on shields and actually very strong at punishing them. Now, Fox has an impressive frame data, amazing movement, and actually being really strong at racking up damage. Fox is also complimented for his strong neutral and advantage states, and Fox also doesn't just have strong damage building moves, but he's also good at KOing. He has some similar flaws that he's had in the past, like one of the lightest characters in the game and having the fastest fall speed and gravity, which also can make him easier to combo, and his recovery options are rather limited. But similar to Diddy Kong, Fox was actually initially seen as a character that people were written off, as people were just singing the praises of Wolf instead. But over time, Fox would get better and better after the years, and the meta began to shift where Fox was actually a lot more of a dominant character this time around, and actually overshadowing Wolf eventually. While Fox began to rise to being a top tier character, dash attack is a strong tool for starting combos, up tilt and down tilt are great tools as well. Many of his aerials are great at setting up and dealing damage, up smash and up air are actually strong KO tools, and down smash is really fast. Now, Peach is the strongest iteration of the character in Smash Ultimate, and also having an Echo Fighter being Daisy, who is the same as Peach. Peach is actually very fast paced this time around, a really unique character with the float mechanic and having amazing recovery because of this. Also, her combo game is at their peak in this game, being really a deep option for the character. She has down special that is a great tool for buffing her combo game and her punish game. And because her recovery options are so good, she can go deep off stage and then edgeguard opponents efficiently. And many of her aerials are really fast startup wise. And these are her premier combo tools, especially out of float. Floating is so strong it gives her a way of avoiding a high amount of landing lag. And she does have flaws like, her KO power. While her recovery is great, her overall survivability is still a problem because, she's a lightweight like many other characters that are kind of in the top tier. And she struggles against sword characters because she doesn't have as much range as them. And she can have trouble landing hits because of this, as she can be juggled and she can also be taken advantage of. But despite all this, she's a really technical character. Her aerials become faster out of float, and these are some of the strongest aerials that Peach has ever had in her kit because of the reduced end lag and also Peach having a faster jump squat. Daisy was also seen as a top tier character early on, and many people thinking that both these characters were the best characters in the game. Even despite the nerfs, especially to her KO power and Fair getting increased end lag, they did have a slight decline in the meta, but they did bounce back. And many people stated that they are actually some of the hardest characters to master, but they can also be extremely deadly in the right hands. Now, Rob's a top tier. I know, we're living in some crazy universe right now. Being significantly buffed compared to the past iterations of the character. Now, his side special was massively improved, which has previously been one of the worst moves in the game. Now becoming much faster with less startup and end lag and more beneficial angles, and this actually improved the move's range, to the point where Rob can actually end combos with it and kill. He also got many other KO increases like to his back air and forward smash, and up tilt having improved launching hitboxes. Neutral B was given increased hitboxes, improving its edgeguarding capabilities, and Gyro has been significantly buffed. Now Rob can actually grab Gyro and then charge it again, and then he can even jump cancel it, they didn't even need to do that, but they did. And Rob also has an mobility increase. His down tilt is a strong move for attacking out of shield, and probably the biggest buff was the fact that Rob can air dodge out of his up special now, and this was a massive improvement to his recovery, as he was an already very mobile character in the air, and now it's even better. They did increase some end lag on his moves like up throw and down throw, also burying now, which took away one of his KO confirms that existed in Smash 4. And Rob was previously seen as just a zoning character, but now after the updates, he's been shown to be a character with a deadly punish game. His weaknesses are him being a heavyweight character with large hitboxes, so it makes him easy to combo, but some of his moves also have a higher amount of startup still to this day and aren't the best out of breaking out of pressure. And his grab follow-ups are also toned down this time around, which is gonna ruin some of his Smash 4 follow-ups that he was known for. And he also doesn't like fighting against characters with reflectors, but he was pretty much seen as a strong character early on, and with representation throughout the game's lifespan, he's been just seen as a top tier character this time around. He's that good. Pyra and Mythra were added as a DLC fighter in Smash Ultimate, used to show the unique swap mechanic that they have, where you can change their movesets from Pyra to Mythra depending on the given situation. It's like Zelda and Sheik on steroids, basically. Now, Pyra has more range and is better at taking stocks, while Mythra has the better combo game, and all of Pyra's attacks are really powerful. And some of these they're strong at challenging incoming approaches, and it's hard to shield punish these moves. She can even break shields with some of these attacks. She has an incredible Nair, which comes out at frame 3, which is actually surprisingly fast. And many moves in Pyra's kit are actually capable of killing at low percentages, although she does have pretty awful mobility, especially in the air. And this goes to her recovery, which is a pretty limited tool when it comes to coming back on stage. Mythra has access to Foresight, which allows her to actually dodge an incoming attack, and she has a vastly superior mobility compared to Pyra. One of her fastest moves is actually her jab, which comes out at frame 2. And many of her tilts are actually strong for comboing, and her specials are good at setting up into her edge guards. And many of her aerials come out on frame 1, which is really fast. You can really notice the difference between attack power if you start to see their dares, and you notice that Pyra's can actually meteor. Mythra does unfortunately have some issues, as both the characters have a poor grab game and exploitable recovery, and they do have a poor jump height, as up special is really not good for off stage. And the swap mechanic is actually not bad in this game because you can actually change characters a lot faster than any previous iteration of the swap mechanic. So pretty much out the gate, the characters were seen as impressive DLC fighters. As a result, they had a strong usage in the meta ever since their release, and they were easily seen as a top tier character. Snake made a return. He is no longer one of the heaviest characters in the game, and now simply just being a regular heavyweight. They obviously nerfed many of his cheesy aspects that he was known for having, like his up tilt no longer having that massive janky hitbox on it, and they also toned down his damage output from Brawl. Many of his hitbox sizes were also reduced, and his explosives were even toned down, as characters like Ness and Lucas can actually absorb them easily. And the thing about Snake is he did get plenty of gameplay buffs to his side special, getting increased KO power, and they also took away a large amount of lag that used to exist on this move. Many of his aerials have less startup, like nair, down air, back air, and sure, they removed his mine down smash, but they gave him actually a down smash that is quick and can cover rolls. Many setup tools that were actually present in Brawl are still in this game, like down throw and down special, and many of his smash attacks have actually a decrease and lag. And even his hand grenades blow up a lot quicker, which greatly improves their utility and their ability to be used aggressively and defensively. He was a more deadlier character almost just as much as he was in Brawl, as a lot of the same combos sort of exist. Sure, his KO power and range was toned down, but he's still Snake at the end of the day. He's a very powerful character in the current meta. His grenades blow up quicker, which actually helped his ability to break out of combos, and they're now a more competent zoning tool. And while Snake wouldn't be as highly perceived, he's still seen as a powerhouse in the meta despite being slightly nerfed. He's that good. Now, Mr. Game & Watch is a top tier character, which again, what universe are we living in? Many moves coming out before frame 3, and actually has really strong moves out of shield, like his up special, meaning Game & Watch is great at punishing moves that miss and throwing out up special to escape out of situations. His combo game is at its peak in Smash Ultimate, and his tilts and aerials are really good. He's also one of the best characters at edge guarding, as many of his smash attacks are extremely safe, have quite a bit of range to them, and they don't even have that much startup or end lag. Game & Watch's flaws are his obvious lightweight. He is one of the lightest characters in the game, and defensively he's not the strongest, as many characters can outrange the character. But the quirks of Game & Watch's size means he can duck under attacks and actually hold low profile, which makes him hard to hit. And he actually has a high amount of airspeed and acceleration. And also his moveset has pretty much new animations across the board. Forward air now produces a bomb, which is more laggy and actually has a lot of knockback than it did previously. Many of his moves are really safe, and they deal significantly more KO power this time around, like his smash attacks. And his down smash berries now, yeah, look at that. And they even buffed the character during the balance patches. It was seen that this was very easily the best version of Game & Watch, especially bait and punish wise. He was seen as a character with a really good punish game. Although he did lose some of his Smash 4 aspects of the character, like his ladder combo that he was known for having in that game, this engine complements him a lot better than Smash 4 did, as he actually is a really annoying character to fight against because his moves are really safe. People quickly realized that he wasn't as bad as he was before, especially when there was more defensive play becoming a thing in Ultimate's meta, as Game & Watch became more of a sell in that time, in this current period. And this is mostly because of his safer moves and more devastating punish game. Sonic being the best version of the character in this game is also an example of a character that loves this more defensive play. In Brawl, he had the best walk and dash speed back in the day, but as the years went by, people realized that he had a possible meta niche as a character that could run the clock and essentially use his speed to his own advantage, so you couldn't touch him. Although he was still seen as a mid to low tier character, he had terrible KO power in that game, but the buffs to his damage output and KO potential made Sonic a top tier bait and punish style character in Smash Ultimate, and many people saw the potential of Sonic's ability to run the clock. Smash Ultimate Sonic was given plenty KO buffs and was still the fastest character in the game. And then many years went by and people began pushing his ability to run the clock, and he can play really defensive when he truly wants to, partly why he's one of the best meta threats in the game right now. While his KO potential is not on the same level as other characters in the cast, it is significantly buffed from past iterations of the character, like his forward smash, which is known for its ability to cheese kills. Smash 4 gave him a back throw KO throw, so he has that, and it still works in Smash Ultimate. Down smash and up smash have more KO potential, but the real outliers here were to his neutral B and down B, as both of these moves exist in every iteration of the character, but they are extremely good in Ultimate. Initially, Sonic was seen as a bad character because of some perceived nerfs to his spin dash and spin charge, where people were beginning to notice some of the nerfs But Sonic began to rise in the online era, more specifically, where camping became more prominent during this time period, and people truly began to see Sonic as a top tier character, where the strengths of Sonic's ability to overwhelm characters and then pull back and play defensively became a better sell for the character. Now, Steve is the best character in the game if you've been living under a rock. He is incredibly good at comboing and KOing. He's also known for his crafting mechanic, where Steve can upgrade his weapons, where the bronze weapons are actually strong at comboing and they're actually really quick and they have very little lag, and then the diamond moves that are extremely hard-hitting KO tools. And he can also build blocks throughout the match, and the better material, the longer they stay on the field. These blocks are actually incredible at stage control and even buff his combo game and punish game significantly, and also trolling game. He can set up edge guards by throwing characters into his blocks, and he can even use them to block approaches and then improve his combo game or his camping ability even. It's really silly. Now, Steve even has some cheesy tools that like his TNT, which is a strong KO option for the character, or his down air that was a very strong move. It is really powerful. His side special traps opponents if they don't jump out of it, and it is an incredible tool for, doing a lot of things. Steve also has a strong recovery for, I don't know, no reason, I guess. Steve's recovery might not be the best, but it's actually pretty decent, and his side special can also be a beefy KO tool and also a recovery option if he has it available. His smash attacks are incredibly hard-hitting tools. His aerials can kill. His moves are really explosive, and those are some of the strong aspects of his kit, making him really hard to deal with. He has plenty of advanced techniques where he can tank hit stun and not take any knockback. Yeah, it's really silly. He has even more advanced techs that are really pushing Steve to a league of its own. I hope you understand that Steve is so good that many of the things that are going for him, while having the advanced techniques and also being able to build blocks and these many things just put together to Steve being a really strong character. His weaknesses are his lackluster recovery at times, but it's not the worst aspect of his character. He does have poor mobility compared to the rest of the cast, and his tools can actually break over time, but to be honest, Steve forces many characters to play around his strengths while not having many weaknesses of his own. His KO power is on point, even his grabs are not terrible. His frame data is actually better than I think people think it is, like his up tilt is easily one of the best tools at starting combos in the game, and Steve is just, he's just one of the best zoners in the game. I know I probably glazed over a lot of Steve's strengths and advanced techniques, but just know he has a strong presence in competitive play and as being a top tier. Easily the best character in the game. Now, yes, some people have been discussing banning him, or even if Sonic is potentially better than him, maybe we'll discuss that one day. But just know that Nintendo is not gonna let people ban Steve, unfortunately, so if you want that, it's not gonna happen. But this is why Steve is clearly seen as one of the best characters in Smash history. Currently, he is the best character in Smash Ultimate unless Sonic takes his place, but I'll let you guys decide that. Alright, you guys, thank you guys for watching the video. There's a Patreon down below if you guys want to support the channel. There's also a Discord if you want to see that down below, and also an Instagram. Give that a follow. Thank you so much. Hopefully you guys are having a good week. Peace.